All righty. So we are very lucky to have with us today a very prominent figure, very related to the situation going on today. His name is Ghanshyam Tiwari, or as his friends call him, GT. He went to the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, is very active in India in the field of education, political activism, and is now on the forefront of the fight against coronavirus in India. So I'm going to let him introduce himself a bit, but thank you so much for joining us for this discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And these are times of crisis for the entire world. So is the case in India as well. We have millions of people, families who are pushed to the brink of bare existence, and no amount of effort that we can put together is sufficient. So it is a call on leadership of every one of us at every level that we are operating to bring out our best for our society, for humanity, to be able to save, serve, and improve as many lives as we can. Briefly about me, I have grown up living across the country, traveling across the country, and built a career first as an engineer, working at global companies such as Intel and Texas Instruments for nearly a decade, and thereafter moved into social sector after an MBA at Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern University, a brief stint at McKinsey, and then moving to Harvard Kennedy School to do masters in public administration. Starting 2011, I started working in the field of social work and politics. Starting from Bihar, which is the poorest state in India, I worked with the Chief Minister of Bihar for nearly 5 years, looking at how leadership can be better, how governance can be better, how better economic research could be brought into the state, more resources could be brought into the state, advise organizations such as Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, worked with London School of Economics. So was able to see a whole spectrum of opportunities that could be brought into the state to make things better. In 2016, I started with a couple of other people, a company that is called Good Ed, stands for Good Educator, which focuses on bringing best teachers, high school teachers, to students, especially in smaller towns, who can get to learn in their local languages using videos on YouTube, on WhatsApp, on Telegram, and other mechanisms. So now we teach around 500,000 children
Wow.
across 400 districts in India using purely online technologies, especially videos.
Wow.
Most recently, in 2019, I ran for parliament. So I have been also engaged in politics. I've been national spokesperson for Samajwadi Party, which is one of the largest regional parties in India, particularly focused on Uttar Pradesh, the largest state in India. Um, Alongside, I've been taking missions in high school education. In these times of pandemic, the one thing that I have focused on is that how can we strengthen our collective response to this situation for now and for later. And within that, it is clear that governments across the world are leading the response to pandemic. So is the case in India. But within that, the message from the governments across the world has been stay home and stay safe, which a lot of people have worked on, have absorbed and internalized. So a lot of people do stay home. But one thing that it has also led to is a sense of stay home, stay safe, and switch off, which means a lot of people who can professionally contribute based on their capabilities to resolve situations of their community, of their fellow countrymen, are not necessarily mobilized to do that. And politics is a huge tool of mobilization, people mobilization. Leadership is also a huge tool of people mobilization. So this is exactly what I have worked on. I've tried to bring together members of parliament across the country, across 12 states in India, across 10 political parties in India, across opposing ideologies, to come together, unite, and be one uniting force that rallies people with professional skills to think about what solutions, innovations that they can bring on the table on an immediate basis that is able to improve or save lives. This initiative is called PI India, Parliamentarians with Innovators for India. It's a COVID-19 national action group focusing on solutions from people with professional skills whose solutions could be implemented through the leadership and the reach of members of parliament in any part of the country.
Mhm. So you bring to the table a huge amount of knowledge, education. You mentioned some of your educational background, your political background. And I know that India has been doing so far very well in confronting the threat of COVID-19. So what are some of the suggestions you think people can mobilize, and what kind of things can people do coming together to confront this terrible virus, especially thinking of New York now, what's going on in New York, where the epidemic has really hit very hard? What are some of the things that you're trying to do?
Well, one thing is just the recognition that as a humanity, we are faced with a situation that humbles every one of us, and that also brings us far closer together than ever before in recent times, both within a country and across the globe. So in India, what we have seen, which is working, is the response to Corona pandemic, to COVID-19, it politically has by and large been a united response where federal governments actions have been resonated by state governments, even though those governments might be from an opposing point of view. While there are challenges of in some cases um, politics sneaking in and creating a blame game, especially on communities, but I think those are one-off scenarios. By and large, politicians have spoken in one voice in speaking about or in discussing the pandemic. Second, it has put science and the medical fraternity at the forefront, at the frontier of this response, putting all kind of rhetoric behind. I think that is a lesson that people across the globe are learning. Um, True leadership that is emerging out of this is both empathetic and scientific. We are seeing, for example, in New York, the leadership has stood out as an empathetic leadership, as well as a leadership that appreciates the role that science is playing, that collaboration is playing in ensuring that more and more people are safe. Um, Third, I think where we differ is I think India reacted a bit abruptly, but maybe just in time to enforce a full lockdown, whereas different parts across the world reacted at a different pace of first not accepting that this is a major issue to realizing that it is a major issue. Um, One final thing is that I think different parts across the world are also putting different issues at priority. Obviously, economy is a priority, but I think that saving lives and reaching a stage where we believe that we are safer together um, is far more important than thinking about how to restart the economy. And I think in many parts of the world, there has been a focus or a clamor for restarting the economy without establishing the goals of what is a safer situation right now. So I think over there, there can be discussions about how different parts of the world are reacting. We saw, for example, in Singapore, that the government acted swiftly, but um, may also became probably a bit comfortable about the situation, and then they had to enforce a lockdown. Um, Overall, we don't know what is the next milestone in the fight against coronavirus, and we have to be humble to say that we don't know. We have to wait for the right situation that tells us what that milestone is. Whether that milestone is a continuous lockdown or that milestone is opening of an economy, we have to look at specific data points to establish that.
Yes, like you say, it's always a balance. You don't want to compromise on human lives. And also, you have the issue of the economy. You have a strong background with education. I'm teaching now online all of my classes in a way that I've never done before. How do you see the future of education changing in a post-corona world? How do you think the world of education is going to be different? Will schools decide it's better to be online altogether? What's going to change?
I think education has been changing for a while now. In a world where, when I went to school, it was by and large information scarce world. As a result, school education was a linear organization of knowledge, which you took from class to class. In an internet-led world, there is it's an information surplus world. So education it can be about breadth that you cover in information, or education can be about the depth that you cover in a particular field. There cannot be a linear organization of information as it is given to school education. What Corona does is with by forcing everyone to be at home, especially children to be at home, right? And schools to deliver education online. It makes schools a better curator of content that they really want to serve to the children.
Mm-hmm. And so you think that following
At
this
the
crisis,
same time, it opens the doors I'll complete. So it opens the door for children to think about different kind of options of learning
mm-hmm.
that exist from their school, outside their school, because in front of their screen, and from a webinar which is interesting to a school lecture which is instructional and interesting. Um, everything is an option. So it is created a new dimension. It has taken away certain dimensions of group learning, the in-class chemistry, as well as the aspects of enforcement that a school brings, that everybody in one is in class and is listening to the teacher. So it has changed the fundamental parameters of education. I think going back, whenever the world goes back to the normal state, um, the new normal will incorporate the choices that online learning offers with the discipline that school-based education creates.
Mm-hmm. So there's going to be more online content in schools, but we're still going to be in the traditional form of classrooms.
Yes, and it can also be forms of blended, where some content is consumed by children, and the classrooms become spaces for tutorials, practices, discussions, experiments.
Mm-hmm. Got it. My next question is, and again, it's great to have you here because you're in India and New Delhi, and you've done so much in the United States. How do you see globalism moving forward? On the one hand, I believe things are going to be much more local. We're going to know that we need to manufacture and do other things much more locally. On the other hand, we're much more communicating in an international way. So how do you see globalism, internationalism? How do you see that going forward?
I think the world will truly depend on the leadership and the vision of top leaders in each country, and how they take the issue um, with respect to distress that coronavirus is going to create, with respect to the economic situation that is going to emerge. If leaders choose to be collaborative, the globalization movement of the world will continue, though at a slower pace, but it will continue.
Mm-hmm.
If leaders choose to blame one another,
Mm-hmm.
then obviously it will put brakes on globalization to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
It will make for their own good, but it will also stretch the resources of the world. So I think um, we don't know what is going to play out, because we don't know the mindset of leaders that gets exhibited. Countries that are democratic will face popular pressures on the leaders, and leaders will exercise their judgment on what is popular to make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly countries will prepare their health services better, to ensure that public health is available as a good to every citizen,
Yeah.
with a better quality. Second, countries will also be a bit more socialist in their approach, as millions will be out of jobs and they would require support from the government.
Mm-hmm.
Even the industries would require support from the government.
Mm-hmm.
So that access will also shift. Finally, I think um, the way China is integrated into the global supply chain,
Mm-hmm.
that may get questioned in the new world, and people would want globalization to remain, but they would want more options on the table.
Got it. Meaning more globalization, but less centralized. It won't all be made in China. You'll see more manufacturing in different countries.
Yes, yes. In one way, I would say that in the past, one important dimension driving globalization
Mm-hmm.
was getting faster and cheaper products
Mm-hmm.
of good quality, and so entire supply chain was geared towards what makes it faster, what makes it cheaper, and keeping the good quality. But in future, I think risk is also going to be on the table. That while we want something faster and cheaper, we want to have um, uh, risk mitigated on the supply line, so that there are redundancies on the supply line that are there, alternate sources are available,
Mm-hmm.
and the supply chain is more distributed geographically
Mm-hmm.
than it has been in the recent times.
Mm-hmm. I guess one final question is we've seen a lot of different groups come together during this crisis, groups that you didn't traditionally see. Do you see religions becoming more collaborative and groups that didn't used to work together, working together in common more often than they used to? Because I know different places. You've seen um, more.
Absolutely, I think that
Yeah. Sorry.
yes. So absolutely, I think faith has a huge power to lead and heal
Mm-hmm.
simultaneously, and this is the time for leaders of different faith to truly demonstrate the empathy, the goodness that each faith brings amongst each of us, and in that, I think it's also the time to be watchful that no elements, whether it is political or fundamentalist in any faith, are able to take the dialogue or overtake the dialogue, and shift the axis from empathy and goodness to anything which is bitter. Um, uh, Politics will play out. There's no doubt about that. But the leaders of the faith have to be more vigilant and focused in their goals to both heal the world, as well as keep any bitterness out of the equation. At the same time, unlike any time in the past, this is a time when faith has to play um, with cutting edge science at every step. And this is not competition. It is truly collaboration, where at one level the doctors, the science is leading the way in terms of building or responding physically to the situation. It is the faiths, faith, leaders of religion, who have to respond emotionally to heal the situation.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that was very, very insightful, and I really appreciate your insight. And I definitely understand better what kind of world we're walking towards. And I thank you so much for your terrific world and terrific work, bringing people together, confronting the coronavirus, and using your expertise to make this world a better place. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I wish and pray for every one of your viewer, and for you and your family, that we stay safe, we stay collaborative as citizens of this new world, and we have a new generation of kids who will carry this experience with them as they grow up. And I think every one of us need to tell a good story to our children to take from here to make a better world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.